this morning early before most of the kids are even awake. I only have the babies up with me so far, but they are out on the sunroom with my husband, so I am getting some soap going. I am making a coconut milk cold process soap bar, and so I like to get these going early in the morning because this process takes a little while. Honestly, it is not hard to make a cold process soap bar. I know when I very first started making soap, or really just the thought of making it, I was nervous about using the lye and just the whole process, but once you make soap, you will realize it's a very simple process, but it does take a little bit of time just because whenever you mix together the lye with whatever liquid you're using, today I'm using coconut milk, but a lot of times I just use water, it heats up, and then also you have to melt all the different fats that you're using to make your soap bar, and everything has to heat up and then cool back down before you can mix them together. So in the morning I like to get everything mixed together, and then I allow it to cool down just while I'm going about my day, and then once everything is cooled back down, then I can come back to making the soap. Now whenever I'm mixing together the lye and water, and then again later when I'm mixing it into the soap or into the fats, that is whenever the lye can be dangerous to the skin. If it gets on your skin or in your eyes, it can be very harmful. And I have a lot of people that ask me why I make it with the lye if it is such a dangerous product to use. And the answer to that is that every single soap bar has lye in it. It is the process that is needed to make soap. And so once it's mixed in with the fats, then that lye becomes completely safe to use. But that is why you have a curing time with soap, to make sure that everything is mixed in and everything's evaporated before using it on the skin. But it is just part of, after I get my lye and liquid mixed together, every time I always go and set the jar on my mantle in my living room because it's up high, it's out of the kitchen, so no one mistakes it for something to eat or drink, because I want to make sure that it's out of reach of kids and even just away from the kitchen, and that's where I'll leave it while it is cooling. So next I'm measuring out all of my fats. For this particular soap, I am using coconut oil, palm oil, olive oil, and castor oil. This exact recipe will be on my blog, so I will link it along with all of my soap recipes for you guys down in the description box below. Alright, I want to take a quick break from this video to thank today's video sponsor, Hiya. I have talked about Hiya on my channel before, and it is a vitamin that I feel really good about giving to my kids. Several years ago, I was on the search for a vitamin to give my kiddos, and I realized it was going to be much harder than I thought to find a healthy, good quality vitamin that was not filled with sugars and different chemicals and gummy junk and all the bad things I don't want them to eat, that I definitely don't want to be in their vitamins. Hiya is made with zero sugar, zero gummy junk. It's non-GMO, dairy-free, vegan, allergy-free, gelatin-free, nut-free, and yet it still tastes great. If your kids are anything like mine, you'll have no problems getting them to take their vitamins. In fact, all of my kids remind me daily when it's time to take their vitamins because they love them so much. The thing that I love most about Hiya is that it arrives straight to your door on a pediatrician recommended schedule, and your first month will come with a reusable glass bottle that your kids can personalize with stickers. Then every month after that, Hiya sends a no plastic refill pouch of fresh vitamins, which means Hiya isn't just good for your kids, it's also great for the environment. If you are searching for a healthy vitamin, Hiya is offering my subscribers 50% off their first purchase. You can go to hiyahealth.com/ouroil oily house, or use the link down in my description box below. All right, also this morning I'm gonna get a loaf of bread going because later on today we are heading out to our farm to do a few things, and then we're going to head to a river that is very close by there and it has a really good spot for swimming, and so I thought it would be a good idea to pack some dinner. So I'm going to make some bread so we can have some sandwiches later on. I get a lot of questions about the way I make my bread in my bread machine, so I thought I would just do it here for you guys. It is so easy. Basically, you just dump the ingredients into the bread machine and then you just press the kneading button. Now, I get this exact recipe on my sister's blog. It's Farmhouse on Boone. So if you go to farmhouseonboone.com and then just search in her search bar, bread machine, sourdough bread machine, bread, or something along those lines, it will pop up and you'll see it's just some water and butter, flour, a little bit of sugar and some salt, and then you add in a half a cup of your sourdough starter. Now, after I do the kneading process once, I do run it through and let it knead a second time. My sister talks about in the blog post, but basically that just makes a fluffier loaf of bread to make sure that it is nice and kneaded together and mixed well. So I run that through twice and then I just leave it in the bread machine to let it rise until it gets almost to the top of my bread machine, and then I click the bake button and it bakes in there and everything. It is so simple. So if you guys are wanting to make sourdough bread but you're nervous about all the different techniques, get yourself a bread machine and follow her recipe. I will link my bread machine and her blog down in my description box below. It is such an easy thing to do. All right, so now it's about 8:30 and all the kids are awake, and we actually made some homemade smoothies for what I like to call first breakfast, because everybody is always hungry right away, and this time of year I find that my babies are up early, my big kids sleep in a little bit later, and so it just happens that we kind of have a couple of different things for breakfast. So smoothies first for those that are up and hungry, and now I'm going to fry up some eggs in my cast iron skillet with some butter for everybody else. And so we're just going to be basically having a very simple breakfast of just some eggs and smoothies. And for the smoothies, it's just some of my homemade yogurt and then some strawberries and bananas frozen fruit, blending it up, and it's a very simple smoothie. On this particular day, we are actually heading over to my sister's house, and this is my sister that I get all of my raw milk from because she has a dairy cow that she milks twice a day. So I'm going to be bringing her all of my empty milk jars. This is what I do anytime I go over there. I just bring her the jars of milk that we have finished to give back to her, and then I get new milk for the week. I typically do this once a week, sometimes twice. It really just depends on how much milk she has and how much milk we drink, and then just how often we go over there. If we go over there, a couple, 2-3 times a week, I might switch out my milk more frequently, and then other times it's just once a week. We don't have any particular schedule, but it works out really well for both of our families. All right, so before we're heading out for today, I'm going to be finishing my soap bar, or at least getting it into the mold. So I am mixing together that coconut milk and lye into all of my fats that I melted together because everything is cooled back down. I am using my immersion blender, and I often get asked if I use a separate immersion blender for my soap making, and the answer is yes. So this one stays with all my soap making supply high up in my bathroom closet. and I have a different one in my kitchen to use when I am cooking. So after I get everything to come to trace, I'm just pouring these in some molds, and I will let these sit in the molds for about 36 hours and then pop them out. And then these bars will have to cure for about 3 weeks until they are ready to use. All right, so today for lunch, I'm going to be making a sourdough skillet. This is another recipe that is on my sister's blog, but it isn't even one that you have to follow totally straightforward. There are so many different ways to make this, and I love making this whenever I don't have a lot of things like, I don't know, readily available in my kitchen, or just have some random leftovers. Today I have some ground beef, and anytime I have ground beef that is not fully defrosted, I will make something like this, or chili, or sloppy joes, or something that can be brown meat that's like crumbled up, because I can't actually like patty these into burgers or a meatloaf or anything because it's totally frozen. So I'm adding this to my skillet, and then I'm chopping up a bunch of veggies to add in. I'm doing some onion. I'm also doing a summer squash. If you saw a couple videos ago, I mentioned that we had a bunch of squash from the garden, and so I am using that today in my recipe to just use up some more of those. And basically, I will saute all the vegetables and brown the meat. And while all that is getting cooked up, I will make a sourdough topping. Now, for the sourdough topping, I do actually follow the recipe for that, because I have tried to just like wing it before, and I'll have a little bit too much and it'll overflow out of my pan, and then other times I will make it and I don't have enough to cover it. So that is the only part of the recipe that I do follow. Now at this point I have it memorized because I use it so much, but if you guys want it, I will have it linked down in my description box below. But it's just a 1.5 cups of sourdough starter, 3 eggs, a teaspoon of salt, and then a teaspoon of some type of seasoning. Today I'm using Italian seasonings, 3 tablespoons of butter, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And I'll mix all that up and pour it on the top of the meat and vegetables, and then I'll throw this in the oven, let it bake for about 30 minutes, and then it will be ready to serve. After lunch, I'm getting my weekly yogurt going. I typically do anywhere from 1 to 2 gallons of yogurt a week, and we use this mainly for smoothies in the morning for breakfast or for snacks. We also like to use it just to eat as yogurt with a little bit of honey, and sometimes I'll add a little bit of granola in. It makes the perfect, like I said, easy breakfast, snack, or even a dessert or a snack at nighttime before we go to bed. So I like to have yogurt on hand. All of my kids like it, and I love that they're getting those great probiotics into their diet. I make mine in my Instapot. It's super easy. I do have a recipe for Instapot yogurt on my blog, but the one that I'm using is actually even different from that one, because the one on my blog, I heat up the milk and then let it cool back down. But for this one, I don't like heating it up. I just heat up a very small amount to add in a little bit of gelatin to let that dissolve, because that will thicken up the yogurt. But I prefer to leave the milk raw and keep those nice good benefits of the raw milk. And so I just do the milk. I add in about 1/8 of a teaspoon of my yogurt starter, and then I put this in the Instapot and I leave it for 24 hours, and then it it is ready to go. So if you guys want to make yogurt, like I said, I have a recipe on my blog, or you can look up raw milk yogurt and make it the way that I make it. Either way is great. I do make both ways, but I definitely prefer this way just so I can keep those benefits of the raw milk. While I am cleaning up my yogurt mess and cleaning out all of my jars, I realized that I was out of dish soap, and so I made some up really quick. I do have a couple different liquid dish soap recipes, but my favorite one that is just super easy is just some water, a little bit of Castile soap, and some lemon essential oil. It is so easy to make, and the best thing is that I can also use this to clean off my countertops. Now, I've mentioned here before, I think in a couple videos back, about my new cleaning course that I just launched. I will link it for you guys down below, but I have a course because I get so many questions about all of my different homemade cleaners, and in this course I put it all together for you and take you through the different cleaners that you can use for your bathroom, your bedrooms, your living room, your kitchen, stain removers, laundry. And I have several recipes and videos on there that are not on the YouTube channel, so if you're interested in that, I will link that course down below. I'm washing some sheets and blankets today, and I am not a person to use the clothesline. Now, back in my prime, when I just had a couple of kids, I was a new mom, I only used a clothesline. I hung up every single sock, every piece of cloth diaper that I used, and now I am just not in that season of life, and I love the dryer, but anytime that I do blankets and sheets and pillowcases, I will hang those up on the line. So I'm getting a load hanging up on the line, and I'm gonna head in and make some sandwiches before we head out to the farm. So for these sandwiches, I'm just slicing up my sourdough bread, and then I'm going to be just putting some mustard and mayonnaise on these, a little bit of lettuce and tomatoes, some homemade pickles, and then I have salami and ham. Anytime I get deli meat from the store, I just try to find a brand that is either organic or does not have any nitrates in it. I know that processed meats like lunch meats aren't always the healthiest option, and we don't eat them too often, but when we do, I just make sure to find the ones that are nitrate free, and then I feel okay about giving these to my family. So I'm making some sandwiches, and then we'll be heading out to the farm. Alright, so we just got to our farm. It's a little windy, so might not be the best audio, but the kids here behind me working with their hogs for the fair. We are less than 2 weeks out from fair time, and they will be showing their hogs, and so they are practicing around walking them and just working with them to make sure they're nice and tame and ready. And we're definitely going to have to be, what's wrong, buddy? Giving them some baths soon. They have that nice big mud puddle that we fill up every time we're here that they love to wallow around in, and so we'll definitely have to be giving them all some baths before we take them to the fair. So the kids are going to work with their hogs a little bit. Whoa, yes, it's sunny. And then I'm going to give you guys some more updates of different things that we have going on around here. Okay, so while the kids are working with the hogs, I want to kind of show you guys what used to be the pond. I told you guys in, I don't know, several videos ago that we were draining this big, huge pond that used to be right here behind me. And a lot of people were asking why I would drain a pond. Here's the thing, we actually have a couple more ponds on the property that are like, one's like way over there and one's like way back over on that side. And we are gonna be building like past where the pond used to be, where that like, this is really hard to do on here, backfield. This is where we're gonna be building. And so this will actually become our driveway here. And behind me over here is going to be our chicken coop, and then we have several pear trees and plum trees over here, and then there's like a big barn up here and like where we would keep some animals. So this basically would be a high trafficked area, and with having little kids, I just don't like water because I get nervous about kids being around water that can't swim. And this is a place where we are hoping that we'll be just forever. Once we move here, this will be our last move. So I plan on being here whenever I'm a grandma and having grandkids here. So anyway, having a pond right where little people will be walking makes me extremely nervous. So that is why we drained it. Now, funny enough, the pond that's far over that way is not near as big as this one. And I really want to someday to dig that one out further and like have like a huge pond over there with maybe a dock and like have a little swimming area. That's down the road. But basically draining one and digging up another, and you realize that is very silly to do, but just where we want to build, it made sense for this pond not to be here. I'm going to walk down here and kind of show you. This was lots of days of moving dirt. It is not finished yet with like the driveway is going to be over this way, but we have come a long way because there is no water here anymore. And where I'm walking currently, there used to be water, and so super glad that it's gone. There's a big like trench over there that we had to dig out to get it to drain, but now it's pretty much all dry over here. And this eventually we're going to so we will level out this dirt just a little bit more and plant grass here, and this will just be a big grassy area along our driveway that'll be kind of like in front of where we will eventually build our house. My husband is working out in this field, clearing all the trees. We are getting ready to bale these fields. So now that we have this new land, we are trying to find any way that we can make a little income off of our farm. And the way that we are planning on doing this is by baling it. And so we are getting it all ready, and hopefully by next year we will be able to bale about 13 acres here on our farm, just for a way to have a little extra income. And also I'm just really looking forward to showing the kids this process. My dad always baled hay when I was a kid. It's a big job getting all of the hay bales picked up and stacked and all the things, and I'm just so excited to let my kids experience this because it was something that we loved doing when we were kids with my dad. Now, after we left the farm, we headed over to a river that is about 5 minutes from our new property to swim. We found the perfect swimming hole. We just let the kids jump in their clothes and swim for about an hour before heading home for bed. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. I get out a new video every single week.